The arrival. In the year 2245, humanity had carved out a significant presence among the stars. One of the most bustling human colonies was New Manhattan, a city that rose like a beacon on the vibrant, lush planet of Xandor. The skyline was dominated by gleaming skyscrapers that shimmered in the sunlight, their reflective surfaces mirroring the sprawling jungles below. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden rays through the heavy canopy, the city buzzed with activity. Traders hawked exotic goods, street performers captivated crowds, and families enjoyed evenings in the lively parks. However, the prosperity of New Manhattan was threatened by whispers of an impending conflict with the Zarkans, a powerful alien empire known for their ruthless conquests. Captain Elena Carter stood at the helm of her ship, the Starlight Venture, a sleek vessel equipped with advanced technology. Her hair, a fiery red that danced with the light, framed her determined face. She was a seasoned explorer and pilot, known for her quick thinking and unwavering spirit. "All systems a go," she announced to her crew, her voice steady despite the anxiety that flickered in the back of her mind. "Prepare for landing on Xandor. We need to gather intel on the Zarkans before it's too late." Her crew, a tight-knit group of specialists, moved efficiently through the ship. Each member brought a unique skill set to the table. Marcus, the sharp-eyed navigator; Ava, the tech wizard who could hack any system; and Greg, the muscle who always had their backs. Together, they were a formidable team, driven by a shared sense of purpose. As they descended through the atmosphere, the vibrant hues of Xandor unfolded beneath them. Deep greens, bright blues, and bursts of colorful flora created a stunning tapestry that was as inviting as it was deceptive. Elena felt a surge of excitement mixed with trepidation. "Keep your eyes peeled," she reminded her team. "The Zarkans may not be far behind, and this planet is filled with uncharted dangers." With a gentle thud, the Starlight Venture landed in a clearing, the ship's engines humming softly as they powered down. Exiting the vessel, they were immediately enveloped by the thick, humid air of the jungle. The sounds of exotic wildlife greeted them, a chorus of chirps, growls, and rustling leaves that hinted at the vibrant life around them. "Let's set up a perimeter," Elena instructed, her voice firm. "We'll need to gather supplies and establish a safe camp before venturing deeper into the jungle." The crew quickly spread out, gathering equipment and surveying the surroundings. Elena moved towards the edge of the clearing, her keen instincts on high alert. She had always believed that the best exploration came with a healthy dose of caution. As they worked, the sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting dappled shadows on the ground. A sudden rustling in the bushes made Elena tense. "Did you hear that?" she asked, turning to face the others. Marcus, always the sharpest observer, nodded. "Sounds like something's moving through the underbrush," he said, his voice low. "Could be wildlife or worse." Elena gripped her sidearm, a sleek weapon designed for both defense and offense. "Ava, can you scan the area for any signs of Zarkan activity?" she asked, her heart racing. Ava nodded, her fingers flying over the controls of her portable device. "Scanning now. I'll let you know if I pick up any signals." The moments stretched, the tension thick in the air. Elena felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. If they encountered the Zarkans here, they needed to be ready. The crew relied on her to lead them through this mission, and she refused to let them down. Suddenly, Ava's device beeped. "I've got something," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. "There's a faint energy signature not far from here. It might be a Zarkon transmitter." Elena's mind raced. "Then we need to move. Let's find out what they're up to." They set off, moving cautiously through the dense foliage. Each step was a reminder of the wild and untamed nature of Xandor. The trees towered above them, their trunks wide and gnarled, while vibrant flowers and bizarre plant life surrounded them. Elena marveled at the beauty but kept her focus sharp. Nature had its way of hiding dangers, and she had no intention of underestimating this planet. As they approached the source of the energy signature, The jungle began to clear, revealing a clearing dominated by an ancient structure, an enormous stone edifice covered in vines and moss, with intricate carvings depicting scenes of battles and triumphs. "What is this place?" Greg asked, eyes wide with wonder. "It looks like it's been here for centuries." Elena stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "It's a Zarkon outpost," she deduced. "But it's abandoned. This could be a treasure trove of information." The crew spread out, examining the structure. Ava moved to a console that had long since gone dark. "If I can get this working, we might uncover their plans," she said, her fingers deftly manipulating the ancient technology. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the jungle behind them. The hairs on the back of Elena's neck stood up. "Everyone, weapons ready," she shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. The crew quickly assembled, forming a tight circle, their eyes scanning the tree line for movement. Then, from the shadows, emerged a creature unlike anything they had seen before. It was massive, resembling a cross between a reptile and a mammal, with thick scales and a long tail that whipped menacingly. Its eyes glinted with a predatory intelligence, and its growl sent chills down Elena's spine. "What the hell is that?" Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the creature's growl. "I don't know, but it doesn't look friendly," Elena replied, her mind racing. They had to act quickly. "We need to back away slowly. Keep your eyes on it." As they began to retreat, the creature lunged forward, snapping its jaws in a powerful display. Greg was quick on his feet, firing a warning shot that ricocheted off a nearby tree. The creature hesitated, giving them a brief window of escape. "Run!" Elena shouted, and they sprinted toward the safety of the ancient structure. Inside, they barricaded the door, their hearts racing as they listened to the creature pound against the stone. "We need a plan," Elena said, breathing heavily. "We can't stay here forever." Ava, still at the console, frantically worked to restore power. "If I can get the communications back up, we might be able to call for help," she said, determination etched on her face. Elena nodded, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "Let's do this. We're explorers, and we faced worse than a big lizard. We'll find a way out of this." As the crew worked together, an unspoken bond of trust and camaraderie formed between them. They were united by their mission and their shared determination to survive. In that moment, Elena realized that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a team. Outside, the creature continued its relentless assault, but inside, hope flickered like a candle in the dark. The adventure was just beginning, and the secrets of Xandor awaited them. The awakening. The air inside the ancient Zarkon outpost was thick with tension. Elena and her crew huddled together, listening intently to the thunderous pounding of the creature outside. Each thud echoed like a heartbeat, reminding them that danger was just beyond the walls. Ava was focused on the console, her fingers moving swiftly as she attempted to restore power. The dim light flickered, casting eerie shadows on the crumbling walls adorned with alien inscriptions. "Almost there," Ava muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. The others watched her, hope mingling with fear as the creature's growls grew louder, more frantic. "Do you think it can get in?" Greg asked, glancing nervously at the door. That thing looked huge. Elena nodded, her mind racing. "If it can't break through, we might have a chance to regroup and figure out our next move. But we need to hurry, Ava." Finally, with a triumphant beep, the console powered on, illuminating the room in a soft blue glow. Ava's face broke into a grin. "Got it. I'm accessing the Zarkon network now. Let's see what secrets this place holds." Elena leaned over Ava's shoulder, her heart pounding with anticipation. "What can you find?" Ava's fingers danced across the screen, and a series of holographic displays projected above the console. Maps, diagrams, and strange symbols swirled into view. It looks like they were conducting experiments here, testing new technologies, analyzing the flora and fauna of Xandor. But there's more. "What is it?" Marcus asked, leaning in closer. Reports of a recent expedition to the northern jungles, Ava explained. They discovered something significant, something that could give them the upper hand in their conquests. It looks like they're trying to harness the planet's resources for their war efforts. Elena's mind raced. We need to get this information back to New Manhattan. If we can warn them about the Zarkon plans, we might be able to stop them before they make their move. Suddenly, a loud crash resounded as the creature slammed against the door, sending a shudder through the building. We don't have much time, Greg urged. If that thing gets in here, we'll be trapped. Okay, Ava, can you send this data back to the ship? Elena asked, urgency lacing her voice. Ava frowned. The transmitter is fried. I can't send anything until I fix it. Then let's find what we need to fix it, Elena said, glancing at the door as the creature rolled once more. We need parts and fast. Let's split up, Marcus suggested. Elena and I can search the upper levels. Ava and Greg can check the lower sections. We'll regroup here in 10 minutes. Elena hesitated, knowing the risks. Be careful, everyone. If you see that creature, don't engage. Just get back here. With that, they sprang into action. Elena and Marcus hurried up a narrow staircase that spiraled around the interior of the outpost. The steps creaked beneath their weight, and the air grew cooler as they ascended. As they reached the upper floor, they were greeted by an expansive chamber filled with shattered equipment and alien devices scattered across the floor. This looks like a laboratory, Marcus remarked, peering through the debris. There has to be something useful here. Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the room. Let's look for anything that resembles a transmitter or a power source. They began rummaging through the wreckage, the silence only broken by the distant growls of the creature below. Just as they uncovered a small, intact device that looked promising, the floor shook violently. What was that? Marcus exclaimed, grabbing hold of a nearby table for support. I don't know, but we need to hurry. Elena replied, stashing the device into her pack. Let's get back to the others. They dashed down the staircase, the urgency of the situation pressing heavily upon them. When they reached the ground level, they found Ava and Greg waiting anxiously. Did you find anything? Greg asked, his expression tense. Elena held up the device. We might have a transmitter, but we need to connect it to a power source. Did you have any luck? Ava shook her head, frustration evident on her face. We didn't find anything useful. Most of the equipment down there is damaged beyond repair. Just then, the creature's roar echoed through the building, louder than before. The ground trembled as it smashed against the door again, cracks spreading like spiderwebs across the surface. We need to act fast, Marcus urged. Okay, Elena said, her mind racing. Ava, can you jury-rig this transmitter with whatever power source you can find? Greg and I will keep watch by the door. Ava nodded, determination etched on her features. I'll do my best. Elena and Marcus took up positions by the door, weapons at the ready. They could hear the creature scraping its claws against the entrance, trying to find a way in. I really hope this works, Marcus muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Me too, Elena replied, her heart pounding. She felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her, pushing her to stay focused. Ava's hands flew over the device as she worked furiously to connect wires and components. Just a little longer, she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. With a final push, she activated the device, and a bright light flickered to life. Got it, it's operational. Elena's heart soared. Can you send a distress signal? I can try. Ava responded, her eyes darting between the device and the door. As she worked, the creature let out another earth-shattering roar, and the door buckled under the force of its attack. Elena and Marcus braced themselves, ready for anything. It's only a matter of time before it breaks through. Marcus shouted. Just a few more seconds. Ava insisted, sweat beading on her forehead. Suddenly, the door splintered, and the creature burst through, filling the doorway with its massive form. It lunged into the room, jaws snapping inches from Elena's face. She fired her weapon instinctively, the shot hitting the creature squarely in the side. It howled in pain, but didn't retreat. Fall back, fall back. Elena shouted, grabbing Iva and pushing her toward the exit. We need to get out of here. As they rushed past the creature, it thrashed wildly, causing chaos in the cramped space. Greg shouted, "Cover me," and opened fire, distracting the beast long enough for the others to escape. Elena led the way out, adrenaline surging through her veins as they sprinted toward the jungle. "We need to regroup at the ship," she yelled, glancing back to see if the creature was following. The team burst into the clearing, the warm air hitting their faces like a wave. But just as they thought they were safe, the creature charged out of the outpost, its eyes locked on them. "Get to the ship," Elena commanded, her heart racing as they darted toward the Starlight Venture. They reached the ship just in time, slamming the hatch shut behind them. "Quick, Ava, can you send that signal now?" Elena asked, breathless and panicked. Ava hurried to the console, fingers flying over the controls. "I'm trying," she exclaimed, her voice laced with urgency. Elena turned her attention to the view screen, watching as the creature paced outside the ship, its massive form silhouetted against the dim light of the jungle. "We need to lift off," she said, eyes darting between the creature and Ava. "We can't wait for backup here." "I'm almost done," Ava shouted, determination flooding her voice. Finally, the screen lit up with the words "DSDRESSSIGNA Ascent." "Got it," Ava announced, relief flooding her features. "Let's go," Elena shouted, flipping switches and engaging the engines. The ship hummed to life, and she expertly guided it into the air. As they ascended, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but the danger wasn't over yet. "Keep an eye on that creature," she instructed, her focus sharp as they climbed higher. To their relief, the beast seemed to lose interest, retreating back into the jungle as they soared above the treetops. "I think we're clear," Greg said, letting out a shaky breath. Elena exhaled, her heart still racing. "Good. We need to regroup and assess our situation. That creature was only a warning of what the Zarkans are capable of." Ava nodded, her eyes wide with realization. "We need to share this information with New Manhattan. They have to know about the Zarkan activities here, especially if they're planning something big." Elena turned the ship toward their original landing site. "We'll have to lay low for a while until we can figure out our next steps. But first, we need to make sure the ship is operational. We're not out of the woods yet." As they flew over the breathtaking landscape of Xandor, a sense of determination settled over the crew. They had survived their first encounter with danger, but now they faced a new challenge, understanding the Zarkon threat and preparing for what lay ahead. Elena glanced at her team, a renewed fire in her heart. They were explorers, warriors in their own right, and together, they would rise to meet whatever challenges awaited them in the vast, unknown universe. The tides of war. The Starlight Venture hovered above the vibrant landscape of Xandor, the hum of its engines providing a steady backdrop to the tension brewing among the crew. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was charged with urgency as Elena and her team gathered around the central console. The holographic display flickered with data retrieved from the Zarkon outpost, revealing the secrets they had fought to uncover. "Let's go over what we found," Elena said, her voice steady as she leaned closer to the console. "Ava, show us the details about the Zarkon plans." Ava nodded, tapping a few keys. The holographic map expanded, revealing a network of interconnected points across the planet. "Here," she pointed to a glowing section of the map. "This is the location of the Zarkon mining facility. They're extracting a resource called Sarelium, which they use for advanced weaponry and energy sources. If they control this resource, it could tip the balance of power in the galaxy." "What's so special about this Sarelium?" Marcus asked, his brow furrowed. "I've never heard of it before." Ava scrolled through more data. "It's a rare mineral, known for its incredible energy density. It can power ships, weapons, and even serve as a form of propulsion technology. If the Zarkans harness it fully, they could launch attacks far beyond their current capabilities. Elena's mind raced. We need to destroy that facility. If we can disrupt their operations and cut off their access to Xorilium, we might stand a chance against their forces. Greg, who had been silently absorbing the information, spoke up. But how do we do that? The facility is likely heavily guarded. We can't just waltz in there. Elena nodded, acknowledging the reality of their situation. You're right. We'll need a plan, a detailed strategy. First, we'll need to gather more intel. I want to know how many Zarkan troops are stationed there, their defenses, and any possible weaknesses we can exploit. Then we should reach out to any potential allies, Ava suggested. If we can connect with other factions on Xandar who oppose the Zarkans, we could form a coalition. That's a great idea, Elena replied, feeling a sense of hope. We need to be smart about this. Let's find out if there are other groups that can help us. As the crew strategized, Elena couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. The encounter with the creature had only been the beginning, and she knew the Zarkans would not take their failed attempts to seize Xandar lightly. After some deliberation, they decided to fly to a nearby settlement, rumored to be a haven for those resisting Zarkan rule. We can land outside the settlement and approach it cautiously, Elena instructed. We'll blend in, gather information, and see if we can convince them to join our cause. The team prepared for takeoff, securing their gear and ensuring their weapons were loaded and ready. As the Starlight Venture soared into the sky, the sprawling forests and hills of Xandar stretched below them, a vivid reminder of what was at stake. As they approached the settlement, a small community nestled between towering trees and shimmering streams came into view. The buildings were constructed from natural materials, seamlessly blending with the environment. Looks peaceful enough, Greg commented as they circled the settlement. Elena nodded, her eyes scanning for any signs of trouble. Let's keep a low profile. We don't know how the locals feel about outsiders, especially with the Zarkans breathing down their necks. After landing discreetly in a clearing, they exited the ship, their senses heightened. The air was filled with the sounds of nature, but there was an underlying tension. As they walked toward the settlement, Elena noticed the wary glances from the locals, humans and other alien races coexisting but seemingly on edge. Stay close and act natural, Elena instructed, leading the way into the heart of the community. The square was bustling with activity, vendors selling colorful fruits and handmade crafts, children playing, and groups of people deep in conversation. Yet, beneath the surface, Elena could feel the unease that lingered like a shadow. As they moved through the marketplace, Elena spotted a gathering of individuals near a fountain, their voices rising in urgency. We can't let the Zarkans take our home, a tall woman shouted, her fierce expression igniting a spark of inspiration in Elena. Let's approach them, Elena said, nodding toward the group. They walked closer, and Elena raised her voice to join the conversation. We couldn't help but overhear. What's happening? The group turned to her, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The woman who had spoken earlier crossed her arms, studying Elena and her crew. We're discussing the Zarkans. They've been getting bolder, attacking our farms and taking our resources. We can't let them establish a foothold here. I'm Captain Elena Carter, she introduced herself, hoping to earn their trust. We're here to help. We have information about a Zarkan facility not far from here. If we can work together, we might be able to stop them. The crowd murmured, exchanging glances. The woman stepped forward, her eyes piercing. And why should we trust you? We've had our fair share of false promises from outsiders. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Because I know what it's like to fight against oppression. We've faced the Zarkans before, and we've survived. Together, we can strengthen our forces and reclaim our freedom. I have a plan. Intrigued, the woman nodded slowly. All right, let's hear it. Elena explained their findings, detailing the Xorilium mining operation and how they planned to disrupt it. She outlined her vision of uniting the community against the Zarkon threat, and the more she spoke, the more she saw the fire igniting in the eyes of her audience. "We can gather fighters, strategize, and hit them where it hurts," Elena concluded, her voice firm. "But we need your support." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd. The woman who had challenged Elena stepped forward again. "I'm Lyra, the leader of this settlement. We've been waiting for someone to rally us. If we join forces, we might stand a chance." Elena smiled, relief washing over her. "Thank you, Lyra. Together, we can show the Zarkons that we will not be intimidated. Let's gather your people, and we can begin planning our attack." As they discussed the details, the energy shifted. People began to move, eager to prepare for the fight ahead. Elena felt a sense of unity building among the group, an alliance formed out of necessity and hope. In the following hours, the settlement buzzed with activity as volunteers came forward, ready to train and fight alongside Elena and her crew. The spirit of defiance began to flourish, and Elena felt invigorated. They set up a makeshift training ground in a clearing just outside the settlement. Elena took charge of the training sessions, demonstrating combat techniques and tactics to those who volunteered. "Remember, it's not just about brute strength. It's about strategy and teamwork," she emphasized, her voice strong and encouraging. Ava, with her tech skills, began creating communication systems and scouting devices from salvaged parts to help coordinate their efforts. Greg worked with the locals to fortify their defenses, reinforcing structures and creating traps around the perimeter. As days turned into weeks, the alliance grew stronger. Warriors from the settlement trained diligently, honing their skills under Elena's guidance. The camaraderie among the fighters was palpable. They shared stories of their homes, their families, and the lives they fought to protect. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the training grounds, Lyra approached Elena. "We've made remarkable progress," she said, pride evident in her voice. "The people are ready and morale is high." "Good," Elena replied, glancing at the gathered fighters practicing their moves. "But we still need a solid plan for the attack. We can't rush in blindly." Lyra nodded. "We've scouted the area around the Zarkon facility. It's heavily guarded, but there are weaknesses we can exploit. We can approach from the north where the terrain is more rugged. That will provide us with some cover." "Let's gather everyone for a final briefing," Elena suggested. "We need to ensure everyone understands their roles and what's at stake." As they assembled the fighters, Elena felt a surge of determination. This was more than just a battle. It was a fight for their freedom, their homes, and their futures. The Zarkons had underestimated them, and now they would face the consequences. When everyone had gathered, Elena stepped forward, her heart racing. "We stand on the brink of war," she began, her voice steady. "But this isn't just a fight against the Zarkons, it's a fight for our survival. We've trained hard, we've forged alliances, and now it's time to take action." The crowd cheered, the energy electrifying. "We will strike at dawn. We'll use the element of surprise to our advantage. Lyra will lead the northern assault, while I'll coordinate from the ship. Our goal is to disrupt their operations and take control of the Carillion facility." Elena's gaze swept over the faces before her, filled with resolve and courage. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for all those who have suffered under Zarkon rule. Together, we are stronger than they can imagine. Let's show them the true strength of unity." As the sun set, casting a crimson hue over the landscape, the gathered warriors erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted. The air buzzed with anticipation, and Elena felt a sense of hope that they could indeed turn the tide against their oppressors. That night, as the stars twinkled in the sky, Elena lay awake in her bunk aboard the Starlight Venture, the weight of the coming battle heavy on her mind. She thought of the lives at stake, the sacrifices that had been made, and the future they were fighting for. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we will face it together," she whispered to herself, her heart steadying. As dawn approached, the warriors readied themselves for the fight ahead, determination shining in their eyes. The tides of war were shifting, and with it, the hope of a brighter future for Xandor hung in the balance. The clash of titans. As the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, illuminating the dense jungles of Xandor, the air crackled with anticipation. Elena stood at the helm of the Starlight Venture, her gaze fixed on the sprawling landscape below. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. "All right, team, it's time," she said, her voice steady and commanding. "Gather your gear and head to the landing zone." The crew moved swiftly, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Marcus secured their weapons, while Ava double-checked the ship's systems. Greg, meanwhile, ran through his mental checklist, ensuring everything was in order for their aerial support. As they descended towards the Xarilium facility, Elena could see the thick plumes of smoke rising from the industrial complex, a stark contrast against the vibrant greens of the jungle. The Zarkans were hard at work, unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. "Lyra and her warriors should be in position by now," Elena said, glancing at the holographic map displayed on the console. "We'll drop them off on the northern ridge to create a distraction. Once they engage, we'll swoop in from above and hit them hard." "Got it," Marcus replied, piloting the ship with a deft hand. "Just give the word." As the Starlight Venture glided into position, Elena felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was a high-stakes operation, and the success of their mission depended on perfect coordination. "We're almost there. Remember, our goal is to create chaos and disrupt their operations," she reminded her team. They reached the drop zone, a rugged area just outside the facility. Lyra's warriors, clad in makeshift armor and armed with an assortment of weapons, awaited them, ready to make some noise. Lyra called out, her fierce determination shining through. "More than ready," Elena replied, her heart racing. "Stay sharp and follow my lead." With a quick nod, Elena and her team leaped from the ship, landing silently amidst the underbrush. They moved swiftly toward the edge of the ridge, where they could get a clear view of the Zarkan facility. From this vantage point, Elena could see the sprawling complex, guarded by watchtowers and patrols. The Zarkans were clearly on high alert, but there was no turning back now. "Lyra, are your warriors ready?" Elena whispered, glancing at the woman beside her. "They are," Lyra confirmed, her voice steady. "We will create a distraction and draw their attention away from the main entrance." Elena took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. "All right, let's do this. Lyra, give us the signal when you're ready." Lyra raised her hand, signaling her warriors to move into position. They spread out, taking advantage of the dense foliage to approach the facility undetected. Elena turned to her team, ensuring they were in sync. "When we hear the first shot fired, we go in. Stay close and follow my lead." As they waited, tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Then suddenly, a loud explosion erupted from the direction of Lyra's warriors, followed by gunfire and shouts. "Go, go, go," Elena shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. They dashed toward the facility, ducking behind crates and machinery to avoid detection. The sounds of battle echoed around them, and Elena felt a surge of determination. They were fighting not just for survival but for freedom, their freedom. They reached the outer perimeter of the facility, where the chaos of battle raged. Zarkan soldiers were scrambling to respond to the attack, their shouts intermingled with the clamor of gunfire. Elena and her crew blended into the confusion, their movements fluid and purposeful. "Keep an eye on those patrols," Marcus warned, peeking around a corner to assess their surroundings. "We need to take them out quietly if we're going to make it to the main control room." "Agreed," Elena said, her heart racing. "We can't afford any slip-ups." They moved in unison, taking out Zarkon soldiers with precision. Elena felt a rush of exhilaration with each successful takedown, a reminder of why she had become an explorer. This was where her courage shone. As they pressed forward, they found themselves in a narrow corridor leading deeper into the facility. "We need to locate it at Aurelium Processing Center," Elena urged. "That's where we can do the most damage." Ava pulled up her handheld device, scanning for the layout of the facility. "This way," she pointed down the corridor. "We need to head toward the eastern wing." Elena nodded, taking point as they moved stealthily through the facility, the sounds of battle providing cover for their advance. The sight of the Zarkon technology, gleaming metal and harsh lights, made Elena's blood boil. This was the enemy's stronghold, and they were going to tear it down. They reached a large door marked with warning symbols, the sound of machinery humming inside. "This must be it," Marcus said, his voice low. "Let's breach," Elena commanded. They took positions around the door, ready to storm in. On three. 1, 2, 3. They burst into the room, weapons raised, ready for anything. Inside, they found themselves in the heart of the Aurelium Processing Center, a vast space filled with glowing containers and intricate machinery. Zarkon technicians scrambled at their stations, eyes widening in shock at the sudden intrusion. "Hold your ground," one of the technicians shouted, reaching for a weapon. "No time for that," Elena yelled, taking aim. "You're going to answer some questions." Ava quickly moved to the control panel, fingers flying over the buttons. "We need to shut down the operations. If we can destroy the Aurelium reserves, it'll be a massive blow to their war efforts." Elena kept watch, her heart racing as Zarkon guards rushed into the room. "They're coming," she shouted. "Ava, hurry." Ava worked frantically, her eyes darting between the screens. "I'm almost there, just a few more seconds." The door exploded open, and a group of Zarkon soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. "Take cover," Elena shouted, diving behind a nearby console. Marcus and Greg followed suit, returning fire as the soldiers advanced. The room erupted into chaos, gunfire ricocheting off the walls as both sides exchanged shots. Elena's pulse quickened as she focused on the task at hand, determined to see this through. "Get those reserves shut down," she yelled to Ava over the din of battle. "I'm trying," Ava responded, her voice strained with concentration. "Just a bit more." Elena peeked over the console, firing at a group of soldiers closing in on their position. "We can't hold them off forever." Suddenly, Ava's voice rang out with triumph. "Got it. I'm initiating the shutdown sequence now." The machinery around them began to whir and whine as the systems powered down. "What's happening?" A Zarkon soldier yelled, panic etched on his face. "Back away from the machinery," Elena shouted, feeling the rush of victory surging through her. "We're going to blow this place to pieces." With a loud bang, the ground trembled beneath them as explosions erupted from the Aurelian reserves. The facility shook violently, alarms blaring and red lights flashing ominously. "We need to get out of here, now," Elena ordered. They rushed for the exit, the chaos of destruction surrounding them. Zarkon soldiers were scrambling, some trying to flee while others were disoriented by the sudden turn of events. "Fall back," Elena shouted, guiding her team toward the safety of the jungle outside. Just as they reached the door, a powerful explosion rocked the facility, sending debris flying in every direction. Elena pushed forward, urging her team to keep moving. They burst outside into the fresh air, the sounds of battle still echoing behind them. "Keep moving," Elena shouted, her heart pounding as they sprinted through the underbrush, the facility collapsing behind them in a cloud of smoke and dust. The Zarkons would be regrouping, and they needed to escape before they were overwhelmed. As they reached the edge of the jungle, they saw Lyra and her warriors waiting for them, faces grim yet resolute. "Did you succeed?" Lyra called out, her voice rising above the chaos. "Yes," Elena shouted back, exhilaration coursing through her. "We destroyed the Aurelium reserves, but we need to move. They'll be coming for us." The group moved quickly, retreating deeper into the jungle as the sounds of Zarkon reinforcements filled the air. The adrenaline surged through Elena, a mix of fear and triumph propelling them forward. "We need to regroup and strategize," Lyra said, her expression fierce. "We've dealt them a blow, but we can't rest yet. The Zarkans won't take this lightly." "Agreed," Elena replied, her heart still racing. "Let's find a secure location to catch our breath and plan our next move." As they made their way through the dense foliage, Elena felt a sense of camaraderie building among the warriors. They had fought together, faced the enemy, and come out stronger for it, but the battle was far from over. Once they reached a secluded clearing, they gathered around, catching their breath and assessing their situation. "We've inflicted significant damage, but the Zarkans will retaliate," Elena said, her voice steady. "We need to stay vigilant and prepare for their next move." Lyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We'll rally our forces and prepare for a counterattack. This is just the beginning of our fight." Elena felt a sense of pride swell within her. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for the future of Xandor. Together, they would rise against the Zarkon threat and reclaim their world. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the clearing, Elena looked around at the faces of her allies, warriors ready to stand and fight, fueled by a common purpose. The clash of titans was only just beginning, and with every battle fought, they would grow stronger, their resolve unbreakable. In the days to come, they would face the Zarkons again, but this time, they would be ready, united in their quest for freedom and justice. The tide of war was shifting, and Elena was determined to see it through to the end. Shadows of retaliation. As night enveloped the jungle, the sounds of chirping insects and distant animal calls filled the air. But the warriors gathered in the clearing were silent, the weight of their recent battle hanging heavily upon them. The glow of a small fire flickered in the center, casting warm light on the determined faces of Lyra, Elena, and the assembled fighters. Elena felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. They had dealt a significant blow to the Zarkans by destroying their Xarillion reserves, but the victory felt bittersweet. "We can't rest for long," she said, breaking the silence. "The Zarkans will retaliate. They won't let this go unpunished." Lyra nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "We need to prepare for their counterattack. Our scouts have reported increased Zarkon patrols in the area. They're likely trying to regroup and retaliate." Elena glanced around the fire, her heart swelling with pride for the warriors who had fought bravely alongside her. "We need to fortify our defenses and gather as much information as we can about their movements. We can't let them catch us off guard." "Let's split into smaller teams," Marcus suggested. "Some of us can scout the perimeter, while others work on fortifications. We'll need to be ready to defend ourselves." "Good idea," Elena agreed. "Ava, I want you to set up a communication network. We need to stay connected and ensure everyone knows what's happening." Ava nodded, her expression focused. "I can create a series of relay points throughout the jungle. It'll allow us to communicate over a wider range without attracting Zarkon attention." As the group began to disperse, Elena felt the tension of impending conflict rising in her chest. She could sense the gravity of the situation. The Zarkons would come for them, and they needed to be prepared. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Under Elena's leadership, the alliance grew stronger. The warriors worked tirelessly to fortify their encampment, setting traps and creating barriers from the natural resources around them. Elena led training sessions, ensuring that everyone was ready for combat. In the evenings, they gathered around the fire, sharing stories and strategies. Lyra often spoke of the history of Xandor, the struggles of her people against oppressive forces, and the resilience they had shown throughout the years. Each tale was a reminder of what they were fighting for, a future free from fear and oppression. But the shadows of the Zarkon threat loomed larger every day. Reports from scouts began to come in more frequently, detailing the movements of Zarkon patrols and their increased presence in the area. "They're closing in on us," one scout reported, breathless from the run. "We saw a convoy heading toward the riverbank. They're trying to secure more resources." Then we need to strike first, Elena decided, her eyes glinting with determination. If we can take out that convoy, we can disrupt their supply lines and send a clear message that we won't back down. Lyra's gaze met Elena's, and a fierce determination flickered in her eyes. I agree. We can ambush them near the river. The terrain will give us the advantage we need. With the plan in place, the warriors prepared for the upcoming ambush. They moved stealthily through the jungle, their senses heightened, each sound amplifying the anticipation in the air. The night before the ambush, Elena gathered her team, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on her. Tomorrow, we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has suffered under Zarkon oppression, she said, her voice steady and inspiring. We will show them that we are united, and that their tyranny will not go unchallenged. As dawn broke, the jungle came alive with colors and sounds, the sun peeking through the thick canopy above. The warriors took their positions along the riverbank, hidden in the foliage, waiting for the convoy to arrive. Elena stood with Lyra, their eyes scanning the horizon. It's time, Lyra whispered, her voice tense with anticipation. Elena nodded, her heart racing. Stay focused and wait for my signal. Minutes felt like hours as they crouched in silence, the tension thickening in the humid air. Finally, the sound of engines rolled in the distance, growing louder as the Zarkon convoy approached. Elena peered through the leaves, her heart pounding as she spotted the armored vehicles rumbling down the dirt path, flanked by armed guards. Now, Elena shouted, her voice cutting through the stillness. They surged from their hiding spots, a fierce battle cry echoing through the jungle. Arrows flew, and gunfire erupted as the warriors attacked with precision, catching the Zarkon soldiers off guard. The initial surprise gave them the upper hand, and Elena felt a surge of adrenaline as they pressed forward. Push them back, she yelled, rallying her warriors as they engaged the enemy. The Zarkons scrambled to respond, their shock quickly turning into aggression. Elena fought alongside her team, her weapon a blur as she moved with agility and purpose. The chaos of battle surrounded her, the sounds of gunfire, the clash of metal, and the cries of warriors filled the air. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, fueled by the adrenaline of combat and the knowledge that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. As the battle raged on, Elena noticed a group of Zarkon soldiers attempting to flank her position. Lyra, to your left, she shouted, pointing toward the approaching threat. Lyra turned just in time, raising her weapon and taking down the nearest soldier with a precise shot. Thanks, she called, her voice steady despite the chaos. But the tide of battle was beginning to turn. The Zarkons were regrouping, their disciplined formations slowly gaining the upper hand. We need to create a distraction, Elena called out, scanning for an opening. Ava, can you hack into their communications? On it. Ava shouted back, darting through the chaos to reach a nearby control panel attached to one of the Zarkon vehicles. With the sounds of battle raging around her, Elena felt the urgency in the air. We can't let them regroup. Keep pushing forward, she commanded, rallying her warriors. The fight was fierce, but the Zarkons were relentless. They fought back with ruthless efficiency, their training evident as they pushed against the assault. Just when it seemed like they might be overwhelmed, Ava's voice rang out above the din. I've got their comms, she shouted, her eyes shining with determination. I'm sending a loop in their system. They won't know what hit them. A moment later, the Zarkon soldiers' communication devices crackled to life, confusion spreading among their ranks. What's going on? One soldier shouted. This is a drill. Fall back. Elena seized the moment. Now's our chance. Push forward. With renewed vigor, the warriors surged ahead, exploiting the disarray among the Zarkon forces. The tide of the battle began to shift as they pressed into the enemy lines, the sound of victory ringing in their ears. Elena's heart raced as they fought side by side, the adrenaline driving them to fight harder. For Xandor, she shouted, her voice a rallying cry that echoed through the battlefield. As they pushed deeper into the convoy, Elena spotted the Zarkon commander directing the remaining forces from a nearby vehicle. "That's our target," she shouted to Lyra and Marcus. "If we take him out, it'll break their morale." Lyra nodded, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Let's do it." They moved swiftly, dodging gunfire and chaos, making their way toward the commander's vehicle. But as they closed in, the Zarkon soldiers began to regroup, firing in their direction. Elena felt the heat of battle enveloping her, and she knew they had to act quickly. "Cover me," she shouted, diving forward to take out a few guards blocking their path. Bullets whizzed past her as she rolled into position, firing back with precision. With Lyra and Marcus flanking her, they reached the commander's vehicle, and Elena kicked open the door, confronting the startled Zarkon officer inside. "Game over," she declared, her weapon trained on him. The commander raised his hands, a look of surprise crossing his face. "You think you've won? You're merely delaying the inevitable." Elena's heart raced as she considered his words. "Not if we can help it," she shot back. "Your reign of terror ends here." With a swift motion, she incapacitated the commander, securing their victory. The sound of retreating Zarkons echoed through the jungle, their formation breaking as panic spread among their ranks. "Fall back," one of the soldiers shouted, their voices tinged with fear. "They're overwhelming us." Elena turned to her team, a sense of victory washing over her. "We did it. They're retreating." The warriors erupted in cheers, celebrating their hard-fought triumph. Lyra raised her weapon high, a fierce grin on her face. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them that we will not be intimidated." As the adrenaline began to fade, Elena felt the weight of what they had accomplished settle upon her. They had dealt a significant blow to the Zarkon forces, but the battle for Xandor was far from over. "We need to regroup and assess the damage," she said, her voice firm. "We've shown our strength today, but we need to prepare for their next move. They'll come back stronger." As the warriors gathered their wounded and began to tend to their injuries, Elena took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. They were no longer just a band of misfits. They had become a united force, bound together by a common purpose and the desire for freedom. Under the canopy of the jungle, Elena felt a surge of hope. They had fought against overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. It was a reminder that unity and courage could triumph over even the darkest of threats. But she knew they couldn't let their guard down. The Zarkons would regroup, and they would need to be ready. With Lyra and the other warriors by her side, she felt a renewed sense of determination. Together, they would face whatever came next, standing strong against the shadows of oppression that threatened their world. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the clearing, Elena looked around at her allies, warriors ready to fight and protect their home. The battle had forged a new alliance, and with it, the hope for a brighter future for Xandor. The fight was far from over, but Elena was ready. Together, they would rise against the tides of war, determined to reclaim their freedom and protect the life they had built. The shadows of retaliation may loom large, but united, they would face whatever darkness awaited them.